kind of like nuances. That was about the different paths and routes into growing your brand. But I want us to focus more on the end goal. We need to be focusing on building brand mental networks. That's the key to brand growth. That's the key to creating and sustaining strong brands. So I'm obviously going to explain what a brand mental network is. What the hell is he talking about? Why is that key to growth? Might have been your first question. And then I'm going to go on to talk about what are the key elements of a brand mental network. How do you know whether you've got a good one that's going to work for you? Then I'm going to finish by showcasing a brand building success case study that really has impacted their brand mental network to positive gain. Okay, so strong brand building is all about developing memory structures, the things that predispose you to choose one brand over another now and in the future. Those of you who are familiar with Les Binet and Peter Phil's work will know they spent a lot of time talking about the importance of memory structures, because long-term brand effects comes from emotional priming, at least the more market share, the ability to sell your brand at higher price points and more profit overall. That seems like a good thing that should concentrate a brand builder's mind. So thinking about memory structures, how does the brand sit in the mind of an individual? Well, it's a crazy, haphazard, chaotic set of images, associations, sounds, colours, memories, experiences, icons, you name it's in there. That's what a brand mental network looks like. It's built up over time from the experiences that you have, with communications reinforcing and amplifying it. Word of mouth as well is going to influence that. So it's an interconnected set of associations. Every network is personal to an individual. This is just an hypothesized one for Virgin Atlantic. Of course, it's got Branson in there. It's got some memories of travel experiences as a doorway to great end destinations. And it's got the staff in there too, who've been heroed in many a communication. That's an hypothesized one. In the research we've done, I can share with you a collective one that I will show you in a little while. Having a strong mental network full of relevant, distinctive, positive associations is critical to brand growth, because it ensures that the brand instinctively comes to mind in the moments that matter. It does that in two ways. It gives the brand memory salience. So if you've got relevant associations in that network that are easily accessed, then they're going to come to mind at the moment of choice to make sure that you're thought of first. So thinking about long-haul travel, and maybe when you want a special experience, Virgin Atlantic want associations of luxury, premium, a highly attentive cabin crew, all to spring to mind really, really easily so that you feel more relevant in that context. If in that network you've got the brand iconography, symbols, logos, etc., it helps with attention salience too, because when you're booking your flights, you're naturally going to be drawn to the Virgin brand iconography, you'll notice the brand, and you'll also access all those other associations. That's why a mental network is so important. And if they're so important, then obviously brand builders need to understand what the content of their network is, so they can understand if their brand building is working, and also understand what they need to refresh, reinforce, or change to make the network even stronger. So we as researchers have to come up with ways to find out what the network is. And that's what we've been doing. So we get to these by asking a couple of simple, open-ended questions. We get people to download all their spontaneous personal associations that pour out when they think about the brand. We then use some text analytics to define the themes that underpin the relationships in the category to create a mental network, the prominent associations that really truly define in the rawest sense what somebody's got in their head when they think about a brand. So here's that one for Virgin Atlantic that I made earlier. For people who are fond of correspondence maps, don't get sidelined by these. The proximity of stuff in these doesn't matter. There's two things that you've got to look for. The size of the ball and the size of the line. That shows the prominence of the association. And so, for example, Mr. Branson is still lodged in the Virgin Atlantic network as the strongest association. We also look for whether the things are connected as well. So when people say Branson, they often say the Virgin Red too. Now, we love these outputs because we get so much more than just by defining on people a set of image associations that we think are important. This is genuinely what's in their head about the brand, and they pour out what they want. So yes, you do get image stuff like luxurious, posh, modern, fun, cool, and enjoyable. If the campaigns are strong enough, they're sticking here too. These guys have just got a sliver of any advertising. And also, if your assets are strong enough, they'll be in here. So they do have the Virgin Red. We also get a rich stream of personal anecdotes and associations as well. And more particularly, we get negative stuff as well that you don't usually ask in an image grid. And it's the negative stuff that can stop your brand being chosen. So anyone want to guess which carrier this is a mental network for? So, Ryanair in one. I don't know whether you had a bad experience. So you can see it's a rich, deeply interconnected set of antipathy, mistrust, and displeasure. So when you want a bad experience, this is the brand that's going to instinctively come to mind in the moment that matters. And it might be first choice. So that's an example of a network that's not being particularly helpful unless you're in the I haven't got any choice context. What do you want to look for in a network that shows that your brand building is doing well? Well, you want it to be dense. That means you've got a diverse set of rich, interconnected associations. That means that the brand is going to be thought of and noticed in as many choice contexts as possible. You also want some stuff that's distinctive to you and only you. So it's only you who's thought of and noticed in the moments that matter. And finally, you want it to be packed full of what we're calling critical choice primers. So those are the things that you have to win in the category. Everyone needs them. You need to dominate on them. If you're dominating on them, then people will develop a summary sense that this brand's going to deliver what I want. And ideally, there'll be a sense of positive outcomes and positive emotions coming from those things as well. Okay, my brand building case study. Here's a brand that definitely has a network that I'll show you later that does brilliantly on all three of those things. It's Direct Line. I really urge you all to, a paper that Helen would have judged, to read the 2018 IPA paper, They Went Short and We Went Long. Because this is all about a brand who worked out that they needed to invest in their long-term brand building activity to drive consideration, to build their base sales, to give them better ROI than doing short-term activations alone. It's a brilliant story. It starts in 2014 when they were in trouble. They were getting killed on price comparison websites. Quotes were going down for home and motor. So they fight back by introducing Hy-Vee Cartel as the fixer under a proposition of hassle-free insurance that just works, invested in the customer experience as well. And this gave them fantastic returns on investment. You can see that in the IPA paper in terms of the efficiency and effectiveness, but I managed to find some Ipsos data. This is the Financial Research Survey, 4 years worth of data. This is just what happens to their market share in motor over that 4-year period since they introduced the fixer. Nearly a 2% increase in share, which is a really impressive result. Furthermore, when we ask the NPS, we can see that all that investment in the customer experience is delivering a better, stickier experience, which means that even though their share of new business might start to trail off towards the latter years, they're still growing the brand because they're winning in the acquisition and retention battleground. No doubt keeping their more valuable customers and not having to swim in a pool of people who are constantly switching all the time and not worth it. So it worked really well. And the reason why it worked well is they have obeyed what I believe are many important brand building principles. The first was they actually invested in the brand, in a long-term brand proposition around the fixer idea, because they worked out that that would drive base sales. So twice their market share in terms of motor, 3 times their market share in terms of home, fantastic ROI and effectiveness and investment because they had the guts to do that. And they also worked out and proved that it will make a difference for them as well. I think that's the key thing there. Secondly, they didn't get into, on the whole, kind of balancing your activation to brand building point that Helen made. Loads of the financial clients have been lurching into too much short-termism. These guys went the other way, so splitting their brand to direct response TV from 50-50 to 80-20 in favour of brand, buying premier spots and actually pulling out really from the digital communications as well, because that wasn't working for them. But most importantly of all, they invested in the customer experience because they had to live up to that fixer promise, hassle-free insurance that just works. You're setting yourself for a fall if you can't deliver it. And they had some really strong propositions as well that kind of show that they were going to put their money where their mouth is. So if you don't fix your car in 7 days, you get £10 a day till we do. We offer you a free accommodation or a free plumber if things are going wrong. So that all helps the whole organisation rally behind the purpose that it's their job to fix things when things go wrong. This is the comms aligning with the experience to great effect. I showed you the kind of hard numbers. Here's some softer numbers. So for some work that we did in April. This is a measure of brand equity, a measure of brand desire. This tells you how much somebody wants to be a customer of Direct Line in general insurance versus that massively cluttered and complicated playing field. It's expressed as a score out of 100. Get it from a couple of simple questions and looking at the ranking of brands. We know it relates to market share, and Direct Line are first after all that work. What becomes more interesting is we then break down the top 5 brands and look at that desire amongst customers of each brand. You can see that the Direct Line customers want to stay more than customers of other brands. Then when we look at the acquisition potential, desire amongst the non-customers, they're first on that as well. So they've clearly got to a point where they're winning in the retention and acquisition battlegrounds. And all of that is reflected in the Direct Line mental network. So I said you need distinctive stuff. They've got the red telephone still lodged in there, a fantastic identifier for when you're searching for things. Still, when you think about how you want to brand your stuff as well, that's the most prominent association. Plus, their position about not being on price comparison sites is very much intertwined within the brand. And then, of course, we've got loads and loads and loads of Winston, of Harvey Cartel, of the campaign. So lots of relevant, distinctive and lively communications and advertising associations. But most importantly of all, I think, they're not about price. They're about being fair, being open, being friendly, being easy to deal with. So they changed the focus from not how much would it be when I buy it, but how will this brand perform when things go wrong, because I'm anxious. That's what I'm anxious about. They've tapped into an insight and they're delivering the brand proposition. Plus they've got some big, solid price, category price primers too. So this is what a strong mental network looks like. Strong distinctive associations, that means they're going to be thought of and noticed when it counts. Really strong on the core things, that means that people are going to choose your brand over others. The third area is density, and I had to get one of these. I had to get a map into my presentation. So horizontal axis is the number of associations somebody has about a brand. The vertical axis is the size of those associations, so the average of all their bubbles. There's going to be a third element on plotting the brands using that brand desire element. This essentially shows how diverse and rich your network is. As we normally see, the winning brand, the strongest brand, has got the most diverse and rich network. That's a typical thing. More choice contexts, more positive associations. What was interesting on this one was that Aviva, who are in quite a strong second place, don't go through as strongly in terms of the diversity of the network. That's because Churchill and Admiral have got loads of stuff about their ads. A huge big ball of nodding dogs and Admiral's hats. It's really important stuff that we need to be focusing on in our life. So what that means is that they're the salient brands. So if they're up on a price comparison site versus a smaller brand, people will just have a sense of familiarity and reassurance and they win. But when it comes to a more considered choice, Aviva actually has stronger associations around the core relevant things that are important in the category, like great service, reliable, they're the kind of the experts in insurance. So relevance usually trumps salience in some choice contexts, something to think about. So that's a brief flowaway from the world of brand mental networks. In order to grow, you need to nurture your networks and grow your brand. That means dense, distinctive, relevant networks, so you're thought of and noticed first in the moments that matter. I think there's a lot to be learned from investing effectively in your brand with high reach, high quality media, actually putting their money where their mouth was in terms of Direct Line's case. But in the case of service line categories, you absolutely have to act first and then talk later. You've got to deliver on the experience to meet your promise set up by your advertising. Thank you.